All aboard! Next stop, Chicago Junction.
Yes, Chicago Junction, being the radio program that is all about everything that is railroad. Now here's our boss, the head of the Windy City Hometown Radio Network, as well as being the chief engineer, Mr. John DeVita.
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Chicago Junction from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on the northwest side of Chicago on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network. On Wednesday, March the 5th, year 2014. Today, the panel will be talking about railroads and model railroads. And now, to start today's broadcast, here's our announcer, Mr. Brian.
And now here's our host with the most, our head train master, Mr. Jack Ryan.
Question is, the most what?
I'll never tell.
Very good. Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. We're going to give you afternoon. It seems every time we do a show on Monday, it turns out to be a holiday. And sure enough, today, March 5th, is Ash Wednesday, a holiday and holy day, and it's a very holy day for Christians, beginning of Lenten season. And I found out not long ago from Father John Cassidy at the parish that the word Lent comes from an old English word for lengthen, meaning the lengthening of the daylight is on us, and it certainly is. And Lord, it can't be any too soon. Can you please end this winter? Let's all pray. Let's all pray. And remember, each in his own words, each in his own way, let's get rid of this winter. But anyway, before we get going, we got a couple of, we're traveling with a less than full crew today. Brian Velo, my accomplice and
co-host,
mentor,
if you will.
and he's also the announcer today. And he and I in the studio. We'll have some people on phone, but let me say hello to people. Tom McKenna, who does the announcing, he's on the panel, and he's also on the Historians show. He is a busy time of year. He's with the Shannon Rovers, and of course March. And as much as St. Patrick's Day extends all of March now, they play several dates a day, different luncheons and whatever, so he couldn't be here. Doug Kenyuk is also, he's teaching over at Wright College. He wanted some extra classes. He called earlier. And Dave DeRushka, Mrs. DeRushka, last week had a surgery. He had to bring her to the doctor today, so let's all keep her in our prayers and remember, we can still pray, can't we? Can we still remember people in prayers in the country today?
I believe that is still our right.
My guns and my Bible, right?
That's it. Praise the Lord and pass the ammunition.
And Kevin Barry, he also is. He's got a bad flu or cold, and we're going to give him a call later. And Bob, I mentioned Bob Trezak. I mentioned Bob on the last Historian show, but I left a little information out. Bob is an antiquarian. He's a historian. He's an expert on old recordings. He's on opera, history of opera, and early entertainments in the U.S., as well as being and I didn't mention it, the creator of and the host of Paranormal Radio, which is also heard on this station and on the WindyCityHometown.com. Anyway, Bob, about 6 weeks ago, had a fall. He was out. He was knocking some snow off of his garage, and he took a tumble himself and broke. Oh, he's got his knee and the ankle, so he's in the mend. And Bob has been doing some little musical pieces for us, to finding some antique railroad songs, and he'll as soon as he can, he'll be doing the same thing again. But I want everybody to get well, and that's it for shouting out a lot of people to say hello to today. So one thing, before we get into the program too, there's one other I want to mention came to our attention. On the Sunday, March 30th, this year, There's going to be an annual, it says 20th annual World's Fair memorabilia show, and this will be held on the Elk Grove Holiday Inn, 1000 Busey Road, Elk Grove, and they're specializing in the 1893 World's Fair, and especially the 1933-34 Century of Progress World's Fair. But of course, all World's Fairs are recovered, right?
Yes, they are.
And anyway, they said there's a special film showing, and the admission, I heard it says, is $6. Seniors over 65, $5. So we lucky people, we old. I was going to say a nasty word. We old illegitimate children. So anyway, we're going to check that out too, and we have its creator or organizer, Rick Rand, and Bob Canidi. Rick is supposed to be on our show next week. Maybe the both of them will be. That will be our historian show of Monday. Anyway, so that's enough of that already. What do we got? We got some historical dates, Brian, that...
Yeah, but also, while we're still on the subject of the shows,
Sure.
March 29th will be the All-American Railroad Show at the Lyon Township High School Fieldhouse, located in 100 South Brainerd Avenue, corner of Brainerd and Crossett in LaGrange, Illinois. There'll be operating exhibits, door prizes, grand giveaway of a 4x6 HO scale layout. There is no selling, so there's all exhibitions. Admission is $4. Children under 5 are free.
What if you have more than 5 kids?
Well, that's it.
Yeah. We're supposed to be talking later on to Pat Golden? Pat Golden. Yeah. He's the organizer of that, and he's also with the DuPage County Model Railroaders, I believe. I believe that's what he's with. Anyway, we're supposed to talk to him later. So, anything historical we got?
Oh, yeah. Well, we were, when I was going through my notes and going, a couple things popped out.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest, of course, from this era is the use 1924. The great robbery, train robbery, in Roundout, Illinois.
Wasn't it New Jersey? Well, that's the one they filmed.
I said yeah, that's where the original movie was.
Yeah.
Actually, that was 1903.
Yeah.
So this is maybe where the Newton brothers thought of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, the Newton brothers stopped a train on the Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul right-of-way in Roundout, Illinois, and took a payroll of more than $3 million, making it the richest train robbery in the United States, in America. Some of the robbers were actually were disguised as train crewmen. So that's how they were able to blend in and get into the baggage cars.
Mm-hmm.
But they sold cash and securities. What was amazing, that in less than a week, everybody involved in the robbery was captured and jailed.
Yeah.
Actually, within the month of them being captured, they were already sentenced and in jail.
Well, things ran a little more swiftly in those days.
Yes. Lawyers had scruples back then.
You sure?
Well, to get them in that fast.
That's just like, okay.
But off of Route 176, when you're going up to Libertyville and Roundout, there is, right near the tracks, there's a turnoff you can go to, and there's actually a historical marker sitting there.
Kevin, are you there?
Yes, sir, I am.
Kevin Barry is under the weather, but he's not under the weather not to give us a call and say hello. Hello.
I'm here.
What's been going on?
Other than making more noise than a steam engine with all this coughing I've been doing, I'm getting along quite nicely.
Mm-hmm.
Had an opportunity to go down to Nashville the week before last and stopped at the Kentucky Railway Museum.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
I
Can't
can
hear
hear
myself. Okay, good. We're getting the feel. Is the sound effect working all right? I don't hear it. Okay, anyway, so this is in, what town is this in?
It's near Bardstown.
And what do they got going on there?
It's not a large museum, but they have several nice pieces. They've got most of their engines were with the Louisville and Nashville Railway. They've got the 152, which is their steam engine, and it came out of the Rogers Locomotive Works in Paterson, New Jersey. And they've got some nice rolling stock. They've got a Chesapeake and Ohio Kanawha, what most of us would refer to as a Berkshire, but the C&O called that particular class the Kanawha because the Kanawha River in West Virginia paralleled the C&O main line, and it's just one of those little things that's particular to that railroad. And then they've got a very nice diesel engine, the Louisville and Nashville 770. It was ordered just before Pearl Harbor and was delivered in May of 1942. And it was used for pulling the L&N flagship line, their prize train, the Pan American.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which is
L&M
means?
Small place, but it's nice.
Yeah. L&M means what, Kevin?
Louisville and Nashville.
Okay, L&N. Okay. The thing about, I know that throughout the country as we go, especially if you take a highway trip, you'll find a lot of places of interest like this. That'd be great to be able to. Anyone ever cataloged all the little museums and that sort of thing?
Yes, they have.
They have.
Trains Magazine, I believe, in the next issue, is going to have basically a train guide to where you can go visit different museums. And this is just a broad, it's not a thick pamphlet, so, but there are usually a lot more museums that people will find afterwards. Going to like Lancaster, Pennsylvania, is home of the Strasburg Railroad, oldest continuously operating railroad in the United States from 1832 with its original charter. And so people go see that, but then across the street is the Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania. And also the Train Collectors Association has their museum up just about a mile away from the Strasburg, where you can get the history of toy trains.
Now, Kevin, did you hear about this? How did you hear about this? Did you just discover it on your way going somewhere else, or?
Well, my daughter and son-in-law and granddaughter live down in Nashville, and when we drive down, I saw the sign because there's signs right along the interstate, and we decided to stop in and see it. You can see the whole thing in a little over an hour. It's not really big. It's not anywhere near what the Illinois Railway Museum has, but you never know what little treasures you're going to find.
Exactly, that's what I mean.
They've got one of the pieces they have down there is a Monon BL2. The BL2 was an engine that was designed for branch line service, and it almost looks like a hot rod the way the metal is designed. It's rather sleek.
Yeah, I know I had a similar experience. This is a long time ago. The kids were in grade school, and we were taking the highway to Disney World. I can't remember which one it was along there, and the sign read in Georgia, it said, Big Shanty Museum, the General. And, of course, I think I've mentioned this before. I know I have. The General is the famous general train of the Civil War, which Buster Keaton made the movie about in the 50s. I think that was 1926, and in 57, I think it was, Walt Disney Productions made a serious story about it, the great locomotive chase So here it was. It almost went to the scrap heap, but they saved it. Now I think it's a Civil War museum or something. They've changed the name, but it's still there. Well worth taking in. So now how about your club? You're with the Chicagoland Lionel Railroad Club, right?
Yes, sir.
Got anything special going on?
We have an open house coming up on the 15th of March out in New Lenox from 9 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon.
Beware the Ides of March.
Well, I have no aspirations to the title of Caesar, so I'm not going to worry about that one.
I had to throw that one. I seem to remember from somewhere.
Good one, Kev.
Yeah.
Seeing as Caesar was the dictator of Rome, and I'm not, I lose the argument to the two household dogs. I don't think I'll ever have the title of Caesar.
Yeah. I wonder what it was like living when an executive does everything by his whim, and he disregards, and he kind of challenges and pushes the. Wait a minute! This sounds like our Chicago city government. Ooh, ooh. So anyway, anything else going on?
No, that's about it at the moment.
Well, we want you to rest in bed, get plenty of liquids, right?
Yeah. Well,
and get yourself
I'll tell
better.
you, I've been coughing so hard, I sound like a barking dog.
Of course, this is a good time to be inside and not outside. So, I had the pleasure 3 years ago. It was bad, cold weather, and I had just done my hip was done, so I was inside for. Other than being miles from home and with no friends around, it was fine. Well, take care. We'll be talking to you.
I hope to be with you gentlemen the next time.
Thanks for calling.
Looking for you next month there, Kev.
All right. Thanks, Bray.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Do I hear that music again, that background noise? Oh, John. Okay, got something else?
We're right in the middle of the Depression. And, of course, everybody looking for work, needed something to stir the people's imagination and such. And the railroads actually took this time, and with the Electromotive Corporation, working with the Union Pacific and Pullman, they built a train which became the first internal combustion lightweight streamliner in the United States.
Okay.
And it was launched in February 12th, 1934. And at a cost of $230,000, $30,997.
God, what would that be today?
Oh, but it was painted an earth brown in yellow, articulated the way it wiggled, and everybody said it looked like an earthworm.
So it got.
But this is something that actually stirred the imagination, gave some people something to think about, and new hope. The railroads were striving to get new hope and let people know we're still around. I mean, like you said, like this, it's the middle of the Depression.
Yeah, the design you show here, the picture looks like it's very much Art Deco.
Art Deco, which was very prominent in that era.
Between the two world wars, yeah.
In 1933, one of the next to last Union station, great station built, was the Cincinnati Union Terminal, and they were very heavy with the Art Deco design in it. And modernistic, people giving hope for the future. And then it was, like I said, it was a gas distillate engine. And they ran, they did runs from actually coast to coast, New York to L.A.
A gas distilled engine?
Yeah, basically a big truck engine.
Is it gasoline that's running?
Gasoline engine.
Okay, gasoline.
Yeah, they called it gas distillate.
Uh-huh.
And but yeah, basically a gas engine, big truck engine. And then 5 months later, or 4 months later, Bud Company, working with EMC, came out with the Zephyr, the first diesel-powered streamliner. And they again, sent that on a whirlwind tour and actually set a speed record for the United States. They ran nonstop from Denver to Chicago at 77.7 miles an hour. And got it here in time to go into the World's Fair in 1934.
Great publicity, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
It was a big publicity run. That's what it was for. And in fact, the Zephyr still exists today in the basement of the Science and Industry Museum. They had refurbished it after it was sitting outside since 1960 and fixed it up and put it inside, and really looks great.
Now, I'm sure it was plenty of press photography, Life magazine, newspapers, and they used to call newsreels, kids. Any of you young kids don't remember, and I think they, up till around the 60s, you still saw some of them in different theaters. Universal had them. They would have might be a 2-reel that's about 18, 20 minutes worth of news, different news around items that were hardly, not often hard-nosed because, well, they might have some big signing of whatever it is or some treaties or something, but it was often incidents that happened in sports and in everyday life, or maybe there might be some kind of cover a mine accident or one of those sort of things. But
or the introducing of something neat in transportation.
Like that, exactly.
So you had these streamlined trains, and airships were big at the time, and so when big airships showed up, they were doing it, and also the new intruder, the airplane. Now they weren't big or anything. A train could still outhaul what airplanes did, because they had planes like the Ford Trimotor, but they were big and shiny, and that's also at a time when maybe transportation overseas, the nonstop flight of Charles Lindbergh. So firing all this stuff, people's imagination to get them from thinking about what they don't have. Sure. What they could look forward to.
Well, the aviator, that was the astronaut of his day.
That's right.
Now you had Charles Lindbergh, you had Amelia Earhart, and we have one more, Douglas Wrongway Corrigan.
That's right.
He
ended up in Ireland.
He's supposed to be going to California.
Right, and he ended up in Ireland.
He did pretty well with that name too. He made some movies and.
That's correct. And in fact, it was so well popularized, the Zephyr actually became a movie star the following year in the Silver Streak, the original Silver Streak.
Right. I was thinking of the.
And they used that in the movie, and showing how some railroadmen, the diesel, that's not a real train.
Yeah.
But then before the end of the year, the New York Central took one of their Hudson locomotives, and steam finally got streamlined when they built a shell to put over it to give it a streamline, and the Commodore Vanderbilt was made.
Okay, what about the 20th century? Was that one of
that was the train that the New York Central, that was their
Tiffany line?
The New York's their water level route, but that was their premier passenger train, the 20th Century Limited, just like Super Chief was for Santa Fe, or the Broadway Limited for the Pennsylvania.
What happened to El Capitan?
El Capitan, that was another train of the Santa Fe. When you're talking name trains like that, the Silver Meteor for the Seaboard Coastline. You had the George Washington for the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad, the National Limited for the Baltimore and Ohio. Those were the name change trains.
So I was going to say, giving them the name almost, was that like a bit for recognition or?
This way, this way you know what they're talking about rather than train number 5.
Yeah.
Because you look, every train has a number. But, Okay, we're going to take train number 5 to Chicago. Yeah. We're taking the Broadway to Chicago.
Yeah, we're taking 20th century.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to ride the Chief.
You know.
Or the Super Chief.
Well, there was even a stage play made of the 20th century. It was made into a film later with
right?
John Barrymore, right?
Yeah, the Barrymore and the actress. I just watched a film with her and William. In fact, Carol Lombard.
Okay. Yeah.
Was the 20th century. Then you had they did make the Broadway Limited, which had Victor McLonigan in it, and he played the boyfriend of one of the agents for the actors on board, but he was the engineer on the Broadway Limited out of Chicago to Fort Wayne, and they actually used actual footage of the streamlined K4 that was pulling the Broadway at that time.
Of course, the railroads loved that, didn't they?
Oh, yes. Hey, that was free publicity. They allowed them, and they gave them the plan so that this way the sets would be perfect.
Almost like a travel log.
That's right.
Yeah. Getting it out there.
Yeah, it was nice when the railroads worked their hand in hand with that.
Yeah, there's so much. I'm nostalgic about it. Just I wish that passenger trains could make a comeback more.
Well, actually, more people are traveling by train now than even 10 years ago. The one thing that's holding them back is the lack of cars. And yeah, the lack of cars and lack of trains. If we can get more money and they get the tracks right, yeah, the passenger train. I don't, for some reason our government really doesn't think people want to travel, but I mean, trains are full. The trains were running minimum 80%.
Yeah, that's 80%. Not bad.
No, it's not. Not when each train's over, and there's and sleeping space is sold out 2 months in advance. So yes, we need more cars and we need more trains.
Yeah. That now 80%. That'd be like batting 800 in the majors, huh?
Yeah.
Not bad. Not bad.
Yeah, between 750 and 800.
Yeah. So, where were we now? What was I saying? John, we haven't been on the line yet, or?
Not yet, after the break.
Okay, well, break is coming up in about 2 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah, folks, just in case you've tuned in late, you're listening to Chicago Junction over this station, and also available. All of our shows are available on WindyCityHometown.com. All of the what's the word I'm looking for? Archives. And we've been going now for over half a year, and we're getting some good comments. If you have any, you can go to the website. There's it'll show you how you can make comments, and even maybe we can have you participate if we could make arrangements with when we know we're taping, and have you give us a call on that day. But we've kind of decimated today by the plague, it seems like. But anything else to say?
Oh, I've got a lot more to say, but we got a break coming up. But I can talk. Okay, I thought he was giving me a sign.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to make sure.
John, watch those signs now.
That's right. Which finger? We had a show this weekend, the High Wheelers show at the Harper College, and unfortunately, weather did play. We were cut down on people normally. I had maybe only 500 people both days, which is kind of light. But when we actually had some sellers there, but we also had layouts all the way from Z gauge, which is the smallest commercially available, inside a coffee table, up to, of course, the G gauge, the garden railway stuff. We had one G gauge layout that was on the floor, big one with the LGB Club, and Midwest Rails had their modular layout there. But a lot of people had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, so something like that for anybody who's into a hobby, it's definitely a place to get some ideas too. Where you're going to go with
and this way, if you have questions, you could also talk to knowledgeable people of the clubs,
right?
Whether it be Lionel. Or we had even a European model there.
Just before we go to break now, just for people like myself or kind of new to this. What is a high wheeler?
High wheeler is a locomotive with large driving wheels and for passenger service.
That's what that means.
That's what a high wheeler is.
Okay, not like okay, high wheeler. Okay,
Yeah.
Not any higher; they're just bigger.
Yeah, they are higher.
They are higher.
Passenger engines usually from 70, 82 inches.
But they still got to reach the ground, right? They asked Abraham Lincoln one time how long a man's leg should be. He said long enough to reach the ground. And on that anecdote, we're going to take a little break, folks.
And you are listening to Chicago Junction on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network from the John DeVita Broadcast Center. And now back to Chicago Junction and our panel.
Okay, hello. We're back. That was quick, wasn't it? My God, time does go so fast when we're enjoying ourselves.
Yes, we do.
And where were we on something? Got some other, any good historical dates that we're coming up on? Or?
No. Those were the first three I can come up with. Well, if, we can do one of the great destructor of railroads, though. Is celebrating his birthday this year. His 60th birthday.
Who that?
Godzilla.
Oh, they're doing another Godzilla movie, I think.
Yes, in honor of the anniversary, Toho is putting out a new Godzilla movie, and looking forward to it. Hey, come on, he's one of the greats.
Friend of mine always says there's a destruction scenes going on. He says it'll say something like "Call the Japanese Marines," or something like that. And of course, the original Raymond Burr, I think, was he the only American in it?
Well, see, the original movie was actually made in 1954.
And re-released it?
And what happened was to make it compatible for Americans.
Right.
Now, because I've got the original, and luckily it's got writing on there.
No Raymond Burr, right?
No Raymond Burr. And you actually see a few bit more things to the scenes that were cut and that add to it, and you'd understand the movie a little bit better on some things, including with the professor, that doctor who liked the Kamiko. And when they did the Raymond Burr, they cut him into different scenes to make him look the part. And
was he a newswire news
AP guy or something like that?
Yeah.
And that was kind of neat.
Hello, we have a caller. Patrick, you there? How you doing?
Yes, this is Patrick.
And Patrick who?
Patrick, what's your last name? I believe
Golden.
Yeah, some is gold and some are silver. Thanks for calling. How's your trip going?
Hey, his mic's not working.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. Sorry about that.
I mean, not as loud as you've been, but I can hear you better.
I'll try to watch my big mouth here. So, Patrick, you're calling, and you are the associated with, or you are the promoter of the All-American Railroad Show coming up?
Yes, that's correct. I'm actually a member of the National Model Railroad Association, the DuPage division of the NMRA, and the DuPage division, along with Lyons Township High School, we are the sponsors of the All-American Railroad Show.
Okay, and can you tell us everything about it, about your association also?
Okay. Well, it's the All-American Railroad Show, and this year's show is our 33rd annual show there at Lyons Township High School. This show serves as the DuPage division's only fundraiser throughout the year. And what we feature there, the show features operating modular model railroad layouts. It is not a swap meet kind of event, so you don't have table after table of everybody's junk to buy. And except for concessions, there's really no selling going on there. We operate a concession area with hot dogs and pop and chips and things like that, popcorn. but except for that selling, there's no other selling going on in the place. So you've got no kids that leave unhappy because you don't have a 7-year-old that falls in love with that $100 caboose or something like that, and you got to drag them out of there screaming because mom and dad don't want to buy that. There's no selling at the show. All we're featuring is the operating layouts, so we're family friendly in that sense. Our target audience is really the moms, the dads, the kids, the grandparents, the aunts, uncles, things like that. People who want to come and just walk around and watch the trains running. This year's show, we've got a total of 27 exhibitors on board for the show. 18 of those are featuring layouts that have operating trains on them. The layouts, we have everything from the LGB size, which are the garden-sized trains, down to the HO and N-gauge layouts. A lot of the equipment nowadays includes sound. So when the train goes by, you hear the diesel roar, the steam locomotive chuff, the whistle, the bell, things like that. We have a layout this year that's made entirely out of Lego building blocks. And then for the first time back in a couple of years, we have a display of 1.5-inch scale equipment. Now, this is the equipment that you can actually ride on, and it runs on rails that are spaced 7.5 inches apart. We've just got the display there this year. Obviously, nobody's riding on anything, but I'm told there's going to be a diesel locomotive there that weighs about 1,000 pounds. So this is the big stuff, so to speak, but it's still model trains and whatnot. The show runs from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and the date Saturday, March 29th. Admission is $4, but under $5 is free, and there is free parking in the parking lot next door to the high school field house that we're in. What else can I say?
I was remiss in my duties. I should have introduced you. I'm Jack Ryan. We spoke before on the phone. And
Okay.
my partner here is Brian Valou. And you're from what, Brian, again?
Well, I'm with the Chicago chapter NRHS and the Chicago Area Garden Railway Society.
Now you have a display there?
Okay, and the Chicago chapter NRHS is one of our exhibitors, too. They have a table there to promote the NRHS.
Mm-hmm.
That is correct, sir.
Well, it certainly sounds like it's be a great experience for anyone. It's affordable, it's accessible, and another thing that I thought of, being that I'm really on the edge of this stuff, is if you're like my son-in-law Sean, for our grandson, daughter's Michelle, of course. The grandson is 20 months old today, and he's full of energy, and he wants to do some setups for that, and start a display. Anyway, it was sounding to be a good idea to go just for someone to get ideas. Would you say?
Say that again. Go to get ideas.
Yeah, ideas for your own, what you're going to do at home. You know, I mean, something to look at. As you say, you can talk to. I know people love to talk about that.
And yeah, that's a good point to be made too, because model railroading in itself is just a multifaceted hobby, and you can get involved to any extent you want. Bench work involves some carpentry skills, then track work comes after that. But if you get good bench work and good track work, such that you can run trains and they don't derail, after that you're kind of off to the races. You need to know a little bit about wiring, and then you can go to scenery and structures to kind of finish out the railroad. But hobby shop owners are more than happy to answer questions. There's books out on the market that describe just about how to do everything. And a point you made about coming to the show to get ideas, everybody at the show there that's associated with these organizations and these clubs that are displaying their modules, they have built these things, and they are more than happy to talk about these things. So if you walk around and you see something and you have a question on a module or how somebody did something, somebody is there associated with that organization that is more than happy to talk to you and explain how they did it, why they did it, what the pitfalls are, and things like that. So don't come to the show thinking that all you've got to do is walk through and not say anything. People are more than willing to talk about their hobby and the things that they have done.
Interesting when you say about the hobby shop. I was with my son-in-law 3 months ago, I guess it was. We've been in there a couple of times on Berwyn Models and Trains on Ogden Avenue, just when he's just east of Harlem a little bit. Anyway, and is it Tom and Larry over there?
Yes.
That's where we saw your flyer about the show. So. So they've been more than helpful with Sean getting everything started, and I can say it seems like something that kids of all ages are going to get into. The daddies and the kids and the little guys and even the men, the women and the girls. Something to get involved with, and something to really be interested in. It's not really, it's really not shallow.
And that's true, and there you make a good point, too, because when I say you can get involved as deep as you want to get involved, there are people out there, and there are clubs out there that will host what they call operating sessions, to where you actually run a train over the railroad. You don't simply stand there and watch it go around in circles. You run the train over the railroad, and part of the operating session is you pull into a certain town, and you have to set X number of cars out at industries in that town. You have to pick up X number of cars from industries in that town. And the entire time, you've got to stay out of the way of anything else that's running on the railroad, which is much like the real railroads. The local may come into town, and the local has to set out X number of freight cars, pick up X number of freight cars, but it needs to keep the main line clear for the passenger trains and the other through freights that are going through. And that's where part of this hobby just really gets interesting, because you know what work you have to do here, but you know all the constraints that are placed on you, and you look around for the cars that you've got to pick up, and here's one that's tucked behind another car, and you've got to be able to pull that car out and put the other car back where it was, and it's very interesting to do that. And typically a session like that will last 3 to 4 hours, and I know I've done it a couple times. And the first time, me and my partner, I was engineer and he was conductor, and we were working this one train, and I bet we spent 3 hours and we didn't get half the stuff done that we should have done, and part of that was even incorrect, because it was our first time doing it, but we just had loads of fun doing something like that. And that's what gives a larger model railroad a purpose to exist. And when you look at it and you see all the freight cars that are spotted at the various industries, and then you realize there's a reason they're all there, and maybe they were dropped off at that industry during this operating session, and in a couple operating sessions later they're going to be picked up and sent in a direction on a different train type of thing. And it's a very interesting way to run the model railroad.
So you're a little slice of reality there.
That's correct. That's correct.
So, well, listen, thanks for giving us a call. We really appreciate it. And will you be at the show on that day?
Yes, I will be at the show. We start setup on Friday night, and we go from 6 to 10 on Friday night setting up. And then we're back there at 7 a.m. on Saturday, and the doors open at 9. But I will be at the show the entire time until 5 o'clock when we close the doors and we start breaking down.
And you really can't wait for Sunday, right?
I will be at the show, and then I'll sleep in Sunday because I'll have very tired feet.
Okay, that's Pat Golden, and once again,
this is Patrick. Yes,
Patrick is all aboard for the 33rd annual the All-American Railroad Show, Saturday, March 29th, 2014. This year, 9 a.m. to 5. Lyons Township High School, Fieldhouse, 100 South Brainerd Avenue. It's the corner of Brainerd and Gossett in LaGrange. Admission, $4. Under 5 years old is free. Anything else we should say?
The only other thing I'll throw in is you can visit the website, which is www.nmra.org. And on there, you can, once you get to the website, you can click on regions and divisions, and from there click on the DuPage division, and that will get you down to our individual division where you'll see the officers, the activities coming up, and a copy of the flyer, and so on and so forth.
That's nmra.org.
Yes.
Good. That's very okay. I'm glad you added that. So, well, thank you very much once again, and we'll be pleased to meet you at the show.
Good enough. Thank you very much for calling.
Welcome.
All right. Have a good day, gentlemen.
Take care.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, that was a good visit.
Yeah.
Learning, and your group
Yeah,
has
our
it.
organization is there. That has been there every year.
But you say you won't be able to make this one.
No, because I'll be tied up that day. I'll be in Atlanta, Georgia,
Oh.
at the University of Atlanta.
Uh-huh.
I'm working with a friend, and hopefully I'll be getting some information about his locomotives
Good. Fantastic.
from their archives.
So, we're trying to be informative. We're trying to be, folks, if you know anything, you have some publicity, you think an organization, an event should get some publicity, please let us know about it. That's lifeblood for us. And
Oh, yeah,
Works both
especially, if you're associated with the Rail Museum.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you say, coming onto the season. Remember I was talking about the guides that are printed. There's actually a tourist book that comes out of it was the Empire State Museum in New York, and Trains Magazine works with them on it. And you're talking about it has over between 400 to 500 places that you can visit by state. Of the bigger attractions there, but then there's the smaller attractions.
Sure.
I mean, you go to Philadelphia. Yeah, you get a nice tour of Philadelphia. Go to the Franklin Institute there, and they've got the 60,000th locomotive that Baldwin Locomotives built, and that they did as a sales model demonstration. Well, right across the river in New Jersey, not far from there, is an exhibit called Northlands. Northlands. It's an HO layout, and apparently it's the largest one in the world. And a lot of trains. You're talking like 20,000 square feet. But there is a layout down in Cincinnati called Entertainment. It's G gauge, and the guy bought a old furniture factory, 25,000 foot square feet, and built a G gauge layout in there. 13-foot high mountains, and it's set up into three sections of the beginnings of railroad and up to the 1860s, age of steam in the 20s and 30s, and then modern railroading from the 70s, 80s on. And it's really interesting. The setup is really nice.
Now, you got to forgive my ignorance. I don't want to learn anything about asking any questions. But talk about different size and gauge, and you deal with garden rail. Would that be like Chicago Botanic Gardens? Is that the sort of?
Well, yeah, garden railroading, the Chicago Botanic Gardens. They are G gauge. That actually, what G gauge track is actually number 1 gauge. Tracks gauge was by numbers. You had 1, 2, 3, and 4 gauge, which was around the turn of the century, 1900s. You had your large scale and standard gauge, and then you had O gauge came, which was half of 1 gauge, because apartments were starting to get smaller. Houses were getting smaller. Standard gauge was still popular because you had the Victorian style houses, so you had a lot of room. And G gauge actually falls into that. But then you have HO, which is half of O gauge. S gauge, which is the 1/64. O gauge came out to 1/48. S gauge is 1/64. That's the old American Flyers after World War II. They had a 2-rail system. HO was becoming popular, and that's 1/87th. And then there's there was TT gauge, which is 1/20th scale. And then there's N gauge, which is 1/160th scale for standard gauge trains, and that's 9 millimeters between the railheads. Then you have Z gauge, which is 1/220th scale, and it's 6 millimeters between the railheads. And then you have, now there's one that's a quad T gauge, 4 T's. And it's getting big in Japan. They call it T gauge. And 3.5 millimeters between the railheads. And the whole train could actually fit on your finger. The wheels are like magnets, and the rails are made of steel. So this way the train stays on the tracks.
Yeah.
And they actually make buildings for them and all. They have a neat little website. But you could have a circle this big.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I'm going about 6 inches in diameter.
So you can go from a little tiny thing like that to some
Right.
giant.
You know, now, G gauge actually came about in 1968. It was introduced at the Nuremberg Toy Show by Lehman Brothers,
Nuremberg, where's that?
Germany.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, Nuremberg, Germany, and Lehman Brothers, which was one of the oldest toy manufacturers around. And they were thinking back to the trains at Christmas, you know, the number 1 gauge trains and such like that. And they were thinking, you know, big trains for small hands. That was one of the advertising, in fact. So what they came up with, using number 1 gauge track, they came out with a train that was 122.3 gauge in size, 120.3, or 122.3, not 220, because that's going the wrong other way. But what it was, they developed a narrow gauge train to run on the number 1 gauge track. Narrow gauge over in Europe, the majority of it was meter gauge, slightly larger than our 3-foot gauge.
Oh, meter. Oh, 39 point something inches.
Right.
Okay.
And
Meter.
that's
Okay.
yeah. And so their trains
Metric.
were their trains were geared to that.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you had number 2 gauge trains running on number 1 gauge track. That's why big and heavy. And this was 1968. And they called it G for garden railroading. Or actually, G was because it was called LGB, Lehman Grossbahn, or Lehman's Big Trains,
Yeah, gross, yeah.
and Bahn being train.
Oh, is that what that means?
Yeah.
Oh.
So it's Lehman Grossbahn. So Lehman's Big Trains. And they've actually filed bankruptcy. And then a German company, Märklin, bought them, and now they're under a new ownership, including Märklin. And LGB is making a great comeback, and a lot of supply parts are coming back, and so it's good that they're around. But they started the G gauge, and then Aristocraft came in and made standard gauge trains on G gauge track in 129 scale. Bachmann went with 120.6, which was the size that, that would be a little bit larger than LGB, but it was made at the correct measurement to make number 1 gauge track 3-foot gauge. So, and they make a very fine product now, and they also are, for the kids, they have the Thomas line. Thomas the Tank Engine.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Thomas and Friends. They have Thomas, Percy, James, the Red Engine.
The grandson's got some of that stuff already,
and Emily.
Yeah.
Emily is there. And the new friend coming in this year is going to be Toby, the Tram Engine. So, but that's how G Gauge got started, and the garden railways. Now, people have had garden railways. You can have a garden railway basically in any scale.
Yeah, right.
In fact, there was a movie, 1936, 37, that had Earl Flynn in it, Olivia de Havilland.
What was it?
It was called Forza Crowd.
Forza Crowd?
Yeah. In fact, several of the people in it all made a movie in 1939 called The Adventures of Robin Hood.
Okay. Must have been Warner Brothers, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yes. He played a press agent trying to get people to, to take, like a personal assistant, make a person seem a lot better than what he's perceived. So what it was, he was going after this rich old man through his granddaughter, which was Olivia de Havilland.
Mm-hmm.
And, but his passion was trains. And you see he had a garden layout of Lionel low gauge. And they did a race between one of his beautiful Lionel scale Hudsons and Lionel's version of the Earthworm, the M10,000. And they had a straight on it. It was actually quite fun.
Forza Company?
Forza Crowd.
Oh, Forza Crowd, okay.
Forza Crowd.
Okay. I remember.
But if you want to see a nice garden railroad scene, that's definitely it, especially when they do the races.
Yeah, I'm surprised I haven't, because it's got that Warner Brothers crew in it anyway, huh? Yeah. It's color black and white, do you remember?
Black and white.
Black and white, yeah.
Oh, yeah. This is still, remember, Technicolor was just coming out. The first movie for Technicolor was actually done by Walt Disney, Snow White.
Feature, yeah. Well, they had Technicolor Company dates to 1917.
Yes, they do, because they had two-color Technicolor.
Two strip, yeah.
And there was, what was that? There was a Douglas Fairbanks movie.
Thief of Baghdad?
No. The Black Pirate.
But okay, yeah,
was done in the two-tone.
Was it two strip?
Yeah, because I remember, the Park Ridge Library runs old movies, and they had it over at the Pickwick Theater, and they showed it on the big screen. But yeah, so Technicolor has, but I mean, with True Color, and it turned out Walt Disney was the first one
with Snow White, yeah.
With Snow White, and then that's when they used it for The Adventures of Robin Hood, and used it for.
It was Warner Brothers' first Technicolor movie, Robin Hood. I know that.
Right, and then they used it with Wizard of Oz.
Mm-hmm.
Wizard of Oz and
Gone with the Wind.
Gone with the Wind.
Yeah. Now they did have shorts though. Disney, for example, in his Silly Symphonies were called
right. They start. Well, yeah. I think the second one made was in color.
Technicolor, and then eventually all of his shorts, Mickey Mouse.
Right. He stayed. Once Snow White happened, then everything else was Technicolor.
I know. Before Snow White was released, all these warnings about your eyes won't be able to stand it. No one will watch this. It'll make you dizzy. It'll hurt your eyes, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But
well, it's like that. Like they said, you only dreamed in black and white and not color. If you dreamed in color, you were on drugs.
I don't agree. Depends on. Mostly, I'm in color. I mean, I like my favorite movies are in black and white. A lot of them. So
but back at that time, was the philosophy of your Freuds.
You're tripping, huh?
Yeah.
You're tripping on something. Anyway, it's so often it seems like we have superstitions get so much embedded into the real reality. Like it inhibits our thought or whatever.
Yeah.
I just saw one on the History Channel. They did a marathon of Men Who Built America Sunday, and the one was about where what's his name? Carnegie.
Andrew Carnegie
built the bridge across the Mississippi for the railroad, and to prove it would be okay, there was a superstition at the time that an elephant would not cross over an unsafe bridge or whatever. Would not cross the river. And they prayed to cross an elephant leading it. So. Yes,
they did.
But that wasn't true either. The elephant had no. They're not afraid of mice, for example.
Well, yeah, I mean, railroaders had a lot of superstitions.
Yeah, but not just railroaders.
Like never turn a locomotive against the sun. Always turn it with the sun.
Why is that?
Because if you turn it against the sun, you can't see the other side.
Oh, I get you.
And it could be danger on the other side. If you turn it with the sun, It will never be dark.
Well, that's kind of like good sense in a way too, isn't it? But it's not really
right.
And there's no strong rule there.
Yeah, just like don't walk under a ladder. A lot of it's common sense.
Smoking will stunt your growth.
Yeah.
If you work out with weights, you get muscle bound, or whatever it might be. So I think we're just about there, John. Well, we want to say hello. Thanks for being with us, and Brian, I had a good time today. You and I, we hit it off pretty good. We could be our answer to Abbott Costello, and who else?
Yeah,
Whiz Kids.
I'll be the man to give you I'll give you your lines.
So until the next time, happy rails to you. Goodbye. Music.
All aboard! Next stop, Chicago Junction.
Join us again next time when we take our railroad of imagination on our continuing journey through the wonderful world of trains. Chicago Junction is a production of the Windy City Hometown Radio Network and can be heard over Jack FM 89.7 WRSH, as well as the WindyCityHometown.com, where recordings of all our shows may be heard. Once again, all aboard! This is your announcer, Brian Valou. Thank you for listening. And oh yeah, the conductor is portrayed by Charlie Johnson, a struggling young actor in need of a work.
You have been listening to Chicago Junction on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on the Northwest Side. Chicago Junction was produced by Jack Ryan, directed by John DeVita, edited by Stephen Lehman, and our audio engineer is James Rohde. This broadcast was pre-recorded on Wednesday, March the 5th, the year 2014. Be safe, and thanks for listening.